So it has been quite some time since we last talked about Dan Bilzerian, almost 4 years ago to be exact. And the last time we caught up with this guy, his multitude of lies were being exposed, and his company was like a big swirling turd refusing to flush down the toilet.
I had to have a story. My story was the trust fund. Like I had a trust fund, I just didn't have access to it.
He was out here buying all sorts of things with his daddy's money that he did not really need, and then writing them off as business expenses. A $75,000 paintball field, a $40,000 rock climbing wall, a $31,000 Star Wars set of guns, just to name a few.
A lot of kids that grow up rich, they have to, kind of play by their parents' rules or whatever. And so since I just kind of like did my own thing, I didn't have to conform, so.
Now with that being said, pretty much everything else from his house to his yacht to the girls in his Instagram pictures were all rented just so he could portray this fake image about his lifestyle.
You were using the company as your personal piggy bank, and they flagged nearly $1 million of, expenses. So this was stuff like yacht rental, London trip, Star Wars set, bed frame, paintball field, vault.
Now recently I dove back into the life of Instagram's biggest capper, and what I uncovered is truly some groundbreaking stuff. I'm talking about his latest grift to sad lonely men, his most recent lies, and of course the ultimate downfall of his company Ignite that left him suing his own father. In Dan's mind, and probably in the mind of that one idiot you knew still going to his old high school's football games deep into his 20s, this guy is an absolute legend. But to me, it's blatantly clear that Dan has operated his entire life based on insecurity. The guy essentially cosplays as a modern-day Hugh Hefner, who he has admitted on multiple occasions is his hero.
And I would think about some poor girl banging Hugh Hefner and just going, oh.
Yeah, but it's not just him. It's kind of like all these fashion guys.
But unlike Hugh, Dan is not a self-made man, and it really drives him insane that he's really just a glorified trust fund baby with daddy issues.
I think I got a lack of attention as a kid.
It's like borrowing money from friends, like I asked my parents for money and they cut me off, and it was...
They cut you off?
They never really loaned me any money, yeah.
Ever taken any seven-figure plus amount from family?
No, I got really no assistance.
That is why for all these years he has claimed that he has amassed his fortune of tens of millions of dollars from playing private poker games with billionaires.
What does your family think of your outlandish lifestyle?
I don't know, I'm not super close to them, so... My dad, I haven't gotten money from them, so my attitude was always just like, well, I'm gonna do whatever the I want to do, and that's kind of the beauty of not having to rely on them for money, is that you can really have freedom.
But after doing some research that really seems far from the truth, it's either that or just the biggest coincidence in history that his father, Paul Brazilian, is a massive fraudster. In fact, just last year he was listed in a civil lawsuit by the SEC where they claimed that he was running from them for the last 31 years, owing them $180 million in the process.
I don't give a where the money comes from. I would have love to just get handed the money on a silver platter.
Basically, Paul was a smart guy who went to Stanford and even Harvard. Using this acumen, he then spent decades screwing over companies who thought that he was there to help them out. He would do this by stock parking, which is a process where someone tells a stockbroker to buy stocks for them under the broker's name, but never disclosing this to the actual company. You can picture it like a pizza. I'm giving out the slices, or so it seems to other people, so he gets a slice, she gets a slice, and even he gets a slice. So it seems from the outside looking in like it's divided up. But really they're just holding these slices for me, and we have already agreed that they will give them back to me at a later time. They do this to hide the amount of pizza, or in this case stock, that they will eventually hold. Even worse, Paul was purchasing this stock with other investors' money who thought that he was building their wealth for them when he was actually committing fraud for himself. And once he accumulated enough stock giving him power in the company, he would declare a hostile takeover, which would in turn cause the company to panic, and either they, or what they call a white knight, would then pay Paul at a premium to buy the stock back to avoid losing their company.
My wildest dreams finally come true!
This is actually called greenmail, where you use the threat of a takeover as leverage to force the company to pay you to go away. So he collects tens of millions of dollars doing this in the 80s and eventually gets hit with all kinds of fraud charges. But he would actually only go to prison for a little over a year.
I think the hardest part of it was knowing that I had to go into school and face all the kids after, a year of saying that he's not going to jail and then being wrong and looking like an idiot.
And he never even had to pay these people back, actually declaring bankruptcy.
It's a 28,000 square foot mansion that offers more amenities than most Four Seasons. An indoor basketball court, a multimedia theater, a gym with around a dozen machines, a game room, office, pool with fountain. All in all, not a bad place to call home for nearly 20 years of your life, especially if throughout most of that time, you claim to be broke.
Yeah, I think the biggest disservice that, a parent can do is to give the kid too cushy of an upbringing, honestly.
Convicted of fraud, conspiracy, and other charges in 1989, Mr. Bilzerian remained entrenched in this palace for 2 decades while SEC lawyers were trying to collect the $62 million Mr. Bilzerian owed the U.S. government.
And then when you fast forward to the modern day, this is where many people believe that Dan actually got his trust fund money from, whether in the traditional sense or in some sort of offshore account.
But in 2000, a federal court finds him in contempt of the SEC judgment, noting he's transferred substantial assets into a complex ownership structure of offshore trusts and family-owned companies and partnerships.
The trust funds, I guess you were entitled to one when you turned 30, one when you turned 35, more or less than you had already made on your own?
I gave it all back, so.
Really?
Yeah. I gave it to my brother.
Why?
I don't know, I didn't need it, didn't want it, didn't care.
And even till this day, his dad was running his company Ignite in the background for him, as what they called an unpaid consultant. But now Ignite also went under a massive investigation from the SEC as well, and this all resulted in Dan suing his own father. So is Dan really the bad guy? Is he just deeply insecure? Or is it all a massive cover-up for his father? Let's dive deeper.
I think it's going to be the first real global cannabis brand.
So just last year, the SEC sued Ignite and Paul Bilzerian, but not Dan, claiming that Ignite reported falsified records in regards to their revenue in the last quarter of 2020. Basically, Paul and his friends were allegedly inflating the amount of money their company was making, falsifying documents to make it look to all of their investors like they were selling tons of vape pens.
The company performed relative to your expectations?
Extremely initially, and then beyond expectations lately. So,
yeah. And the difference is what?
I'm running Super Bowl ads for free. My Ignite's got better engagement than Nike does.
This announcement of the revenue gains caused the stock price to jump by over 150% because it made it look like the company was gaining massive traction after years of being in the gutter. The only problem was, the company he was claiming to have bought these vapes turned around and said none of it ever happened. Money nor vapes were ever exchanged according to them, and so they repeatedly disputed the purchase.
Bro, what are you talking about, man?
And then when Ignite ended up getting audited for this, Paul allegedly used a shell company that he also controlled to try and go back and make this purchase look legitimate.
I think we probably sell the company in the next couple years, honestly. I think these big tobacco companies realize the future is vape and they're going to need a brand.
And now it is being alleged that Paul was using Ignite and his son Dan to hide his wealth the entire time, funneling millions of dollars through these shell companies into the guise of this company Ignite. But obviously he got sloppy again, and now all of this fraud he's committed over the years is being consolidated against him, and the SEC wants their $180 million. But before we get into Dan going scorched earth on his own father over his bad decisions, I want to tell you guys about a great choice you can make with today's video sponsor. So recently my parents moved, and the entire time they were very worried about their dogs. Because obviously change can be hard, and these guys grew up and lived in our old house their entire lives and they are now seniors. So I wanted to personally make sure they had consistency in their lives and that their nutrition was on point. And that's where the sponsor of today's video, Sundays for Dogs, comes in. Because while they might be in a new home, they are still tearing up those human-grade bowls of dog food. I mean, I'm talking about not leaving one crumb, all while Delilah was pissed. Like, what are you doing with my food, Dad? But hey, everyone knows that sharing is caring, and this food was beyond easy for my parents to transport back and forth between their old and new house as they transitioned the move. There were no spoilage concerns, it didn't have to go in and out of the fridge. It was really just simple, effective, and good for them too. I have a deal going with them right now. All you have to do is go to sundaysfordogs.com/JAMARI, or just use my code JAMARI at checkout for 50% off your first order. They have chicken options, they have beef options, they have turkey. Honestly, my dogs have tried them all and they've loved every single one. So go hit the link in the description and use my code at checkout, and check out Sundays for Dogs today. I promise you won't regret it. So now Dan is really mad at his daddy, and that is where his lawsuit against his father, his business partners, and his old company comes in. Dan claims that these men devised a plan to remove him from his spot as the CEO in his own company. And not only that, but he claims even after his removal, they allegedly continued to prop him up as the poster boy for Ignite, and even kept him from using his own likeness to build or work with a new brand. Funny enough, in the lawsuit, Dan kinda goes scorched earth on his father, bringing up his numerous fraud charges he racked up over the years, and really acknowledging how scummy he truly is. He does all of this while also claiming that despite being the CEO of the company, he was just the face of Ignite this whole time, and that he apparently had absolutely nothing to do with the operations, which obviously I don't believe at all. But he also says that he went to the shareholders, i.e. his father and his father's friends years ago, complaining about the company and the direction it was going, and that they responded by terminating him at the end of 2023. That is where this war really started, and in June of last year, 2024, things would get even worse for Dan as they allegedly removed him from the company altogether, revoking his chairman of the board status, something Dan claims that they did illegally because they did not get the 67% vote of approval from their board. And still all along, Ignite continued to advertise the brand using Dan's image. Those are now the two major things he is suing for.
So how much money are you worth today?
Guess it depends on what my company sells for. I mean, hopefully like 350-ish, you know, I don't know. Probably.
Million?
Yeah.
350. Okay, so
it seems to me from the outside looking in that this company was funding Dan's lifestyle for years, and that was the cost of helping his dad try and rinse this money. I mean, it is public knowledge that he was spending millions of dollars on photo shoots and yacht rentals, and really just a whole bunch of other bullshit that had nothing to do with building the company. And I just have an extremely hard time believing that Dan did not know what his dad was doing in the slightest, but now he's claiming that he was just an unassuming victim. And it's almost like I can't even blame him for doing so, because it's also clear that his father allegedly tried to throw his own son under the bus. And so now Dan wants his father to pay him 50 million smackaroos. And funny enough, Dan now wants to take a deep dive into their actual numbers, which is just hilarious to say after he propped himself up for so long based on the prowess of this bullshit ass company and the fake revenue metrics they were putting out there when they were still public.
Where do you want to be in 20 years?
The goal is to make a couple $2 billion in cannabis, give a bunch of it away, do some charity, spend more time surfing in Hawaii, and then I want to be president.
You want to be president of the United States?
Yeah, I think I can do it.
I mean, guys, I have never one time seen a single one of their products out in public, and Dan was out here acting like they were as popular as that bullshit everyone smokes from the gas station. And also knowing that this all started going down at the end of 2023 just makes so much sense, because ever since then he started his latest grift, which is actually giving dating advice to men, of course for a price. Now Dan has been going around parading himself as the beacon of knowledge when it comes to how to get girls.
Think about yourself as the f***ing string and the girl's the cat.
Act as if you belong. Act as if you've talked to a bunch of hot girls. If you look at a girl like you don't need her, and you look at her like, you know, maybe she has chlamydia.
If you have something cool in your room, take her, show her. I remember one time I asked a girl if she wanted to go smoke. She's like, yeah, and then we started hooking. And she was like, where's the weed? I was like, oh, I don't even have any weed.
My buddy were having a conversation the other day, and like he was like, I think it's I was arguing that I think you have a lower chance of getting a serious rejection if you put a girl's hand on your dick than if you go for a kiss.
And you were like, you know what, I need to scale this out and help more guys.
Well, I just felt like nobody was giving them the right information.
Yeah.
There was just so much bad information.
There's a lot, dude.
You have to fuck like hundreds or thousands of girls to figure this shit out.
You know, a lot of people are like, oh, if I had money, I'd be getting all this pussy. And it's like, it probably wouldn't be, dude. But understanding a hot girl's mind, because when I became famous, like I understood what it was like to be a hot chick.
You told these girls they had to go down on your friends before they got to have sex with you.
Or fuck them or this or that. Like I was thinking like, oh, I'm not tall, so women aren't going to be attracted to me. Or I'm not rich, so I can't get women. Or, you know, like all these reasons why they're not attracted to women.
Do those things not matter?
No, they don't matter at all. Like at all.
Like, yeah, Dan, I'm sure all of those women that you had around had nothing to do with your money or your fame that you achieved from your father's dirty hands.
I've said it to my buddy. I'm like, money maybe brings 5 or 10x girls, like, you know, if you use it. And I'm not talking about using it in the sense of just paying them. I'm saying like set up your life to where like you have a nice life and there's cool shit going on, parties, whatever. And then the fame, I think it's like 100x. I think it's like 100 times.
And it's just hilarious how every person to interview him is basically sucking him off the entire time. Like, there was absolutely no pushback on anything he says from these clowns. And I actually went to check out his dating advice website, which he calls Sigma Society, and he definitely took a page out of Andrew Tate's MLM book on this one. Learn how to attract the women you want without needing looks or money. Oh my god. The funny thing is, he actually gives you this little questionnaire along with a video of him spewing bullshit, and depending on how much money you claim to make, it changes his offer to you. Like, if you clear less than $100K a year, you only get the option to buy his $200 course, which he actually has the audacity to value at $4,000 fucking dollars, by the way. But hey, I guess for a poor little pussy like you, that would be a steal. And also keep in mind, that's $200 per month, not just like a one-time payment, my boy. Now, if you do make more than $100,000, you get the opportunity to set up a personal call with Dan. And honestly, watching some of these review videos on the website has to be my favorite part of this entire thing.
He really has this like genius level ability to understand attraction and social psychology.
I was with this really, really cute girl, and all my friends were like, holy shit, Hike is talking to this chick.
Dan he's the Hugh Hefner of our generation.
Dan is like Moses coming down the mountains with the commandments of dating and understanding a female attraction.
The fact that he's giving back to a lot of the guys that have idolized the success that he's had over the years, the fact that he's taking time out of, you know, the multiple kind of companies that he runs to teach us guys and get us up to speed. I would say thank you for foremost.
I mean, goddamn, is this guy glazing him on a whole nother level? Oh yeah, my leader Dan, he's doing this out of the kindness of his heart. Fuck out of here. You know, at the end of the day, this guy won't even admit that he is a trust fund baby. He exaggerates about his time in the military. He lies and says he's a police officer. And every story just does not pass the bullshit meter anytime. Like, overall, it's very hard to believe absolutely anything this guy has to say. Though the SEC clearly has time to listen, as many believe that Dan might have been the whistleblower to initiate their shakedown. Allegedly, that is. As he is not being charged with anything in their lawsuit against his father and his father's friends, despite being very heavily involved with the company, which to me screams compliance. It is funny though, after watching hours and hours of various interviews and just digesting all of this different Dan content damaging my brain, the thing I had to have found the most hilarious is that this guy has some sort of sick fantasy about LARPing as an average everyday person making a typical wage.
So I guess if money wasn't a factor, and I just had to pick a job that I'd do because I like doing it, probably be a teacher. That'd be nice. Sell the company for a couple $2 billion and then go work at Walmart for 3 months. I think that would be kind of cool.
And you'd like that way?
What I want to do when I become a billionaire is go work at Walmart for 3 months and have like a full reset. Not Walmart, I probably work construction.
We would go work a regular job for like 6 months at Walmart or a valet. I think he actually offered me like $1 million to be a valet, but it was like in the summer in Vegas for 3 months.
Most miserable.
I should have done it.
Yeah.
But either way, I want to know what you guys think about this latest Dan update down below. I also want to thank you guys for watching today's video, dropping a like and subscribing. But as you guys know, it's been your boy the Tan Superman, and some other Instagram frauds out here need to be covered, so I'm out. Peace.
A lot of kids that grow up rich, they have to, kind of play by their parents' rules or whatever. And so since I just kind of like did my own thing, I didn't have to conform, so.
So that was a fucking lie.